I received a lot of demand from viewers to create a tutorial on this piece of software. Input lag is something you want to reduce to the maximum while gaming, and especially if you are a competitive gamer. On Windows, you can use NVIDIA Reflex, which is an SDK for game developer and also like gamer, which help like measure game responsiveness and also like decrease the overall latency of your system. But on Linux, what do we have? Well, we have LatencyFlex. It is a vendor agnostic latency reduction middleware. Yeah, it's a lot of words. A real alternative to NVIDIA Reflex. Let's get into it. Hey, Max here. 8 months ago, I released a YouTube video on optimizing your gaming experience on Linux. The goal of this video was to share some tips for reducing the input lag and stuttering. I made some comment about LatencyFlex saying that it could trigger anti-cheat and recommended not to use it. Well, I did try it for the last 2 weeks on my main and my Smurf accounts on Apex Legends. The results are pretty good and I didn't receive any ban. I guess I was wrong. I will be focusing on Apex Legends in this video, but a lot of other games can benefit from this middleware. In fact, every game that supports NVIDIA Reflex should be able to take advantage of LatencyFlex on Linux. However, I will still warn you about the fact that this software might get you banned. So be aware of it. I'm not responsible of any ban. Okay guys, like don't be careful when you use it. The goal of this tutorial is to decrease input lag or increase responsiveness. We measure performance of a GPU by the number of frames per second, but we tend to forget that the maximum throughput does not guarantee a smooth and responsive gaming experience. The ultimate goal is to have a stable and small as possible responsiveness between your action on your input, your mouse and keyboard, and your output, your monitor. I don't have the tool to measure the difference between using this middleware and not using it. However, I can tell if the experience is overall better. Spoiler alert, it is. You will have to believe me or start donate on my Patreon for me to get all the nice tools to be able to measure it. And we're gonna need a lot of Patreon because it looks like it costs a lot. So what is the magic trick technologies that work on Linux on both AMD and NVIDIA card? Well, the author made a great post in which he explained in detail where his idea to create this program come from and how he executed it. I will put a link in the description for you to get through the whole process he went through. It's actually mesmerizing. If I understand it correctly, the idea is to make sure that both your CPU and GPU are not bottleneck and stay in sync the whole time. Most of the lag comes from the bottleneck from the CPU or the GPU. By getting a little bit of margin on both sides, it makes sure that bottleneck never happens. And when you have this bottleneck, it's actually when you have lag on your screen and input lag. So what it means on our end is that the max amount of FPS you will get in game will be a little bit lower than your actual maximum, but not by much. Your card will never be working at 100%, neither your CPU. So you will ask me, why not just cap your maximum FPS? Well, in this case, you might miss some of the rendered frame, and it might not be a smooth experience like the one you will get by using a middleware like LatencyFlex. LatencyFlex can be injected into any games that support NVIDIA Reflex, and can also be used with certain games that does not support Reflex, but meets certain game engine conditions. Before we jump into the installation process, let's talk about the limitations. It won't work on native Linux games because it uses a Proton NVAPI integration. If there is no Proton or Wine in the middle, you won't be able to use it. LatencyFlex currently does not provide any benefit when vsync is enabled, obviously. LatencyFlex introduced a jitter in frame time as a part of its algorithm, which results in micro stutter. However, most of the games tend to have a larger frame rate fluctuation already, so this is likely unperceivable. And I couldn't see any of these jitters while gaming. It requires Linux. It's not available on Windows. If you are using Windows, just use NVIDIA Reflex, you peasant. Let's start the install. Install process is not really complex, but it needs several steps to be executed perfectly. The GitHub page gives a fair and solid install tutorial. However, I won't be following it directly for clarity purpose in this video. We will proceed through 8 steps I made especially for this tutorial. Step 1. Download the latest release of LatencyFlex. You go on the release here, you download this file. When I'm recording this video, it's the version 0.1.1. You download it and it should be in your download folder. When it's downloaded, you need to extract the file and keep the one you only need. It was gonna make the process a little bit easier. So I'm extracting, and this folder here, Unity, you don't need it. I'm gonna delete it. And here you have multiple files in this folder, and I'm gonna just like remove them because I think the structure of this folder is a little bit too complex and we don't need those. So let me show you. Okay, this is empty. All right. So here is the file you need. That's the file. Now you got those files and they are out. We're gonna start the step 2. You need to copy the Vulkan layer files and edit the JSON to reflect the current installation path. If you are using Debian, this is where you need to be copied. But if you are using Arch like I'm using right now, it need to be copied in those folder here. Okay, it's written here. So we're gonna do that. I'm gonna go inside the download like folder. A little bit of clarity here. Where I want to copy, like I need the root permission to copy those files. First one is lib LatencyFlex. Okay, and I'm gonna copy it in user lib in this folder. Boom. So this is the first one. The second one, you want to copy the LatencyFlex.json. So we're gonna do sudo cp LatencyFlex.json, and we need to copy it in user share Vulkan implicit layer.g. Boom, it's done. And as I said, you need to make sure the installation path inside this file is reflecting your current installation path. Okay, so let me show you. If I check this file right now, the installation path, you see LibreFi path, is not the correct one. This is not where we installed it. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna edit it. Oh, okay, it's a clean install, guys. So I had to install Nano real quick. Okay, no problem. No problem. You don't need to do that if you have already a text editor. This file is in user share Vulkan implicit layer. User share Vulkan implicit layer, and the file is latencyflex.json. Okay, you need to update this one. So we did copy it in user lib LatencyFlex. Okay, so you update it, you save the file, you get out. This was step 2. Now let's move to step 3. We need to copy the LatencyFlex extensions file for Wine and Proton. So normally your Wine folder should be in user lib wine. It should be there. So if I do that, like user lib wine, here we go. In user lib/wine, this is where you should be copying the file. So what file do you need to copy? You need to copy all the DLL, and you need to copy into the Windows folder, and you need to copy the latencyflex_layer.so in the Unix folder. So how are we gonna do? Same sudo cp. We're gonna send all the DLL, okay, into this folder like that. So I'm gonna copy them in user lib wine x86-64 Windows. Done. Now I'm gonna do a sudo cp latencyflex_layer.so, and I'm gonna copy it into user lib wine, and this one we're gonna use the Unix one. Up. So we are done with wine. Normally, like if you are using wine, it should be enough for this part, the step 3. Now let's talk about Proton. So Proton, the way it works, you need to install those files I just copied in every installation of Proton you have on your PC. So let's say you have Proton Experimental, Proton 7.0.5, Proton Doc 6, like all the different versions of Proton they're gonna require those files. I'm gonna do a copy here because that's something I'm more like, I would say, used to. You can do like symbolic link if you want. It's another alternative if if you just want to have them like linked from one folder to another. I rather copy them. I think it's easier. It's cleaner in my mind. How are we gonna do that? The way it works, normally your Proton installation are located in your home folder. Okay, so that's home, your username here. My username is Ermax here. In your .local folder, share, Steam apps, common, Proton, and we're gonna go experimental. So I'm gonna be focusing on the Proton experimental here. Okay, so if I do that, you see you're gonna have access to your whole Proton folder. So if you look at the tutorial, it's a small line here, and it said for Proton and certain distro, you also need to change lib to libx64. Copy the following file. So those files, again, you need to install them in your Proton install. Here is how I did it. So here you don't need sudo because it's in your local folder. So you're gonna copy. Let me get some clarity here. You're gonna copy all the DLL file. Okay. So we're gonna do it like that. You're gonna copy them in your Proton folder. And Windows. Okay, so they need to be copied in this specific folder. I'm gonna put link in the description below, like where all my file locations are. It's gonna be easier for you to do the job. So this is done. Now you're gonna do the same for the LatencyFlex _layer.so. So make sure you put it in the Linux folder, this one. So wine x86 Unix. Okay, you need to put it in the Unix one. Copied. All right. And that's it. So now you should be good to go for both Wine and Proton for installing the LatencyFlex extension. Now let's go to the step 4. What you need to do is copy the extension to the Proton prefix folder. This one needs to be done too. Again, you can do a symbolic link, but I'm going to copy again. So which one do you need to copy and where do you need to copy them? You need to copy, so copy LatencyFlex wine.dll, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So home, Ermax, local, share, Steam apps, comp data. And here, this is the number of your game. So for example, like when you install a Steam game, you're gonna have one folder with a game in the command like place. It's gonna be, for example, Apex Legends, and then you're gonna have another like folder created in this comp data folder with the number of the game. So the number of the install of the game for Apex Legends, it's 11.72.470. This is the tricky part. You need to install those files. I'm gonna put a link again into the comp data number of the game here, pfx drive C Windows system 32. So this is a wine one, and then you copy exactly at the same place the LatencyFlex layer. We're gonna copy LatencyFlex DLL into the same folder. So just to give you an idea, if I go into my local share Steam apps, I'm gonna have two folders here. The common, where you have like everything installed in clear, so Apex Legends here, for example. And then the comp data, where you're gonna have all the extra like data related to what you installed. So now you're gonna be like, Ermax, how do I know which folder it is supposed to be for each game? If I have 10 games to install like those prefix. Well, here is the answer. You wanna know which number it is? Type in Google Apex Legends Steam Store, and you're gonna have a number, and this number is gonna be your number for the prefix. You see 11.72.470. 11.72.470. Simple as that. Now let's go to the step 5. We need to make sure like DXVK-NVAPI is installed on your system. So normally it should be installed because every version of Proton after 6.3 include DXVK-NVAPI. But just in case you want to check this for sure, we're gonna go in our like Proton experimental folder. So you go into files, lib64, and wine for an example, and NVAPI. You see, it's there. And here we go. You got it here. So if it's there, normally it should be there. You really need to have like a old version of Proton for it not to be there. So it's there on Proton Experimental. It's also there in Proton GE. I verified it, so it's not an issue. So now, step 6. create a custom dxvk.conf file for specific game you want to use with LatencyFlex. In this tutorial, we're just focusing on Apex Legends. If you want to install LatencyFlex for another game, you're going to have to redo all those steps for every game. How do we do that? You just create a DXVK file. So I already created one, but that's the command nano space dxvk.conf. You go there and you need to add 2 specific lines. I'm not inventing those lines, they are here in the tutorial. Here are the 2 lines. This one is to make sure you don't have the NVAPI hack enabled. You need to make sure it is disabled because it's enabled by default since I think like Proton version 7.0, so you need to do it. And the second line is only if you don't have NVIDIA card. If you have an AMD card or even I guess like a Intel card now, you need to enable that and it's gonna spoof NVIDIA GPU. So here I'm running an NVIDIA card, so I don't need the second line. If you don't run an NVIDIA card, please uncomment the second line, the DXGI like .custom.vendor.id to make sure like you are spoofing your card. Otherwise it won't work. So now your file is ready. And what you want to do, you want to copy this file inside the folder installation of the game. So here we go, Steam, and it should be in Steam apps, common, Apex Legends. Okay, you copy this file there. This was step 6. Let's go to step 7. You need to create a custom command line inside the Steam launcher to activate the middleware. If you look at here, this is the line you need to copy. Proton enable NVIDIA, like this big line here, okay? So how do you do that? You launch Steam, you go into your library, right click on Apex Legends. So this is where you copy the line. I'm gonna explain what it means. So here you are making sure that NVAPI is enabled. Here you are spoofing your driver, NVIDIA driver, to the 497.29 version of the driver. These commands allow you to use like different drivers than the one you are spoofing. And then here you are enable LatencyFlex. And then you launch the game. Okay, so this was step 7. Now you need to launch the game. So just to make sure, like you go to the compatibility tab and you make sure you are using like Proton experimental here. Okay, because if you put all those files inside the Proton experimental folder, you want to make sure you use it. Okay, so this is step 8. We are launching the game. Yay! Game is launching. So here, there is not a lot you need to do. You go in your settings, video, and you should have NVIDIA Reflex not gray out anymore, and you can enable it. So I don't know why it did reset all my settings here. But make sure you disable VSync, obviously, and make sure you have NVIDIA Reflex enabled, and that's it. You should be good to go. So now, if it still does not work, you can double check all the 8 steps I show you. You go through them, you make sure you did everything that I mentioned. If it still does not work, I'm gonna put a link in the description below where you can like troubleshoot everything with more log files and see what's wrong. You can still open an issue ticket on GitHub, because that's what it's for. Maybe there is like some specific hardware which doesn't work or something is wrong. I know on my hand it was working pretty well, and it took me some time to really understand and gather like all the information and make it work, because this tutorial is super clear when you have a deep understanding of how everything is, I would say, like linked together. But if you are a noob like I was before setting that up, it was pretty, I would say, like pretty rough to get in, to be fair. So that's why I went through all those steps to make sure like you don't forget any and make it as clear as possible. All right, so here we are. Now you have the opportunity to use NVIDIA Reflex with your AMD card on Linux. It's pretty awesome. I did play for 2 weeks, no problem, no ban. I do believe it's safe, at least for Apex Legends. What you have to understand is like all the single player, they will be working and you don't have any risk of getting banned, and you're gonna have the opportunity to enjoy NVIDIA Reflex on your computer. So as you notice, the installation process is pretty tedious. It does work at the end, but it's pretty tedious. And what I would love to see is Valve pushing into their packages, you know, like Proton packages, everything installed already, and make sure like it's already there when you just go through like the install process on Steam. and let you the opportunity to enable everything through the command line like they already do, for example, like NVAPI, it will be, in my opinion, like pretty good. Because right now it's not super user-friendly to install everything. That's for sure. Anyway, I hope this tutorial really helps you. Thank you for watching. Thanks for all the support. Thanks for all the members on YouTube who help me financially, and also the Patreon member. Guys, you're the best. Thank you very much. We'll see you in another video. Until then, bisous bisous. Take care. And enjoy your almost like zero latency input lag on Linux. Yes, yes, yes.